Alright, little bros, we are back with another video. We are doing a villains tier list. We just did the protagonists, so it only makes sense to turn around and do the villains. Um, I don't have a ton of villains. I'm just kind of putting out a little video, just kind of like with the protagonists. May come back later and do a bigger video with more villains, more antagonists, but for now, this is what I'm doing. Gonna show you who exactly belongs where in the hierarchy, who's S tier, who's overrated. This is mine, like if I didn't get hooked on it, just like with the protagonist, if I couldn't really get into the show, your villain will belong here. Um, Now, I feel like what we got to do is we got to kind of set, because I feel like villains kind of like are rated based off of other villains, right? We know this guy's a great villain because this guy was a good villain. That's how I think of it. So I got to rank um a couple of these villains like right off the rip. So like Toguro, to me S tier. Like I think Toguro was one of the first villains where I watched an anime like Yu Yu Hakusho, and just like the planning, the cunning, the intellect, the viciousness, that he uses to reach his goals and attain what he wants. Like I think Toguro is an S tier. I think he's one of the top tier villains, especially in anime. And another one I want to rank, so we kind of get an idea of where we are, is once again Yu Yu Hakusho. Now, Sensei, I like the villain, but I don't think he's S tier. I think he's A tier. That's where he is. That's where he belongs. Good villain. I think he's very, very well written. I just don't think he's at that same level as Toguro. Now we know where S is at and where A is at. We kind of got an idea. I can tell you where everybody else is going to go in the hierarchy and kind of like how they compare. So last time we started off with JJK and Yuji Itadori. So we're gonna start with Sukuna now that we've kind of gotten some preliminary rankings out of the way. Sukuna, B tier, solid villain, strong, got all the things, sadistic, but Sukuna just doesn't bring that level of planning and execution. Like he doesn't really bring that. He feels more like a force of nature almost than like a well written like character that has, clear motivations, executes a plan, all that kind of stuff. He just seems like a force of nature that just kind of like kills people and is really strong. But I mean, there is some planning where he worked with Kenjaku to get into the culling games and create the fingers and everything. So I do think he's a solid villain, just not A tier or S tier. So this is where Sukuna is at. We're gonna get into another one. So to me, we'll start with let's do Muzan. So I like Muzan Kibutsuji. I think I think it's like an interesting character, but I just feel like he spends so much time sitting in the shadows. You don't get a lot of backstory. And then like when we do see him fight, he's beating the shit out of all of his own minions. And then you get that flashback of Muzan freaking out because he's about to get his head split open by Yorichi. So I definitely feel like he is C. Like I don't think like I like the concept of Muzan, but I just feel like when you watch the anime, he just seems like a bitch. All right, so we got a couple of ones like this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And we're gonna power through a couple of these real quick. Just couldn't get hooked here. So even with the protagonist, right, they kind of belong in here. But I wanted to include these villains, even though I was gonna drop him here ultimately. Maybe one day I'll watch uh Naruto. I ain't never gonna watch One Piece, never in my life. Um, haven't had really a chance to watch this show, but I do plan on watching it at some point. I want to. There's never a point in my life where I'm ever gonna watch One Piece. There's just no way. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna do Frieza now. I feel like okay, so I feel like Frieza, right? Evil, murderer, but to me he's overrated. I don't think Frieza is some top tier villain just because to me he just seems like Sukuna on roids, like just a racist, psychopathic murderer. And I just don't feel like that's a good villain. So, I'm sorry all you guys that think Frieza is top tier, you are wrong. Frieza is overrated. So, uh, it's time to change your opinion and get with the times. All right, are the Guillotine. C tier, not very memorable. I'm putting her here. I barely remember what she did besides get smoked. Definitely C tier. Aaron Yeager. You know what? Hold up. I didn't create the absolute ass tier. Whoops. No, I don't want to change the damn color. Let's do pink. Okay, so absolute ass. I hate Aaron Yeager. Definitely gonna be absolute ass. I don't even care if he's better. I just hate the character. Like, I'm just so upset from the first season of Attack on Titan that anything I ever do with Aaron Yeager, he's gonna get his own absolute ass tier. There's no getting around it. I hate that man. All right, the Evangelist from Fire Force, C tier, right? I mean, as far as a villain goes, when you're talking about planning, like she has her plan and everything she executes, but she's so off screen all the time and not really involved that I don't think there's any way you could ever argue anything higher than a C, right? Like there's no way a B. Like she just sits in the shadows and she does all her planning, but definitely a C tier. She's not doing much. Let us power through a couple of these. So obviously I didn't think much of Vash, so I'm not going to think much of his brother. Didn't think much of Spike, so I'm not going to think much of Vicious. I know this is looking very C heavy, but hey, look, this is where they belong. Naraku. Hey, this is where they belong, man. This is definitely where they belong. All right, let's get into some of the bigger, heavier hitters here. So Father, kind of the same thing as the Evangelist, right? Planning, everything that would go into a good villain. Plans, does whatever it takes to achieve their goals, right? Very sinister. He's more involved than the Evangelist, but he's not like a Sensei or a Toguro. So I put him as a B because you don't see as much of Father when it comes to engaging with our protagonists, right? I put him as a B. He's same level as Sukuna, and like I feel like this is a very I feel like this just makes sense. I feel like this makes a lot of sense. Um, like I mean, come on. When you think about like Muzan, Ara, like Father is definitely above them, but Sensei and Toguro, there's just no way. All right, let's see here. So we're gonna do Kenjaku. Kenjaku is an A tier villain. Not as powerful, right, as Sukuna or any of the other JJK sorcerers who take part in the Culling games, but he's very strong, right? He gets active, a lot of planning, does whatever it takes to achieve his goals, has some crazy goal where he doesn't even know what's going to happen. So to me, definite A tier, maybe bordering on that S, but to me, Toguro and Perfect Cell, they just set the bar for S tier. And I think when you're comparing Kenjaku to a Toguro or a Cell, I just think he's not he's not at that level. He might be approaching that level, but he's not that level. Definitely belongs in A tier now. Perfect Cell, I don't even know. I don't even feel like it needs an explanation. Like this is just where the man belongs. So we got two more. We got Kira and we got the goblins from Goblin Slayer. And hear me out here. The goblins, definite A tier. I mean, these guys, absolutely terrifying. Okay, episode one, insane. I mean, yeah. If you haven't seen it, go watch episode one. Absolutely terrifying. Definite A tier. All right, Kita. Kita. Where do we put you? I like Kita. I do feel like there's definitely like a bit of a drop off between the first part before L's death and the second part, but I do think overall Kita is an A tier villain. Um, he's obvious mastermind, right? Doing all the planning, whole strategy. I definitely think he's a very formidable villain. Another thing about a villain that I forgot to bring up, right, is they believe in their cause, right? Like Kenjaku believes in his cause, Sensui believes in his cause, Cell, Toguro, Kita definitely believes in his cause, and so he belongs here at A tier. Now this is it. Take a good look, little bros. Okay, so next time you're having a conversation with your buddies, and they try to stray outside of this, you can bring it up, show them the picture on your phone, and say, look, Eren Yeager, absolute dog shit. Okay? Makima, me. Frieza, overrated. Toguro, top notch, baby. That way, everyone can be on the same page, okay? And, alright, bros, that's it. That's all the correct opinions for now. We're going to do anime series tier list next. Join me in that one, and peace.